There's a bug in here. I gotta find it.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. 2025 is a big year for game dev. Let's face it, game development can be messy, but having the right workflow can make it way smoother. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about my workflow and my step-by-step process of making indie games. So hopefully I'll be able to help you guys out and make your workflow even smoother. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of you that are brand new to working on indie games and stuff like that. So I'm going to go through my process a little bit, give you some insight, and maybe help your own process out. The idea here is to go from game concept to final product. So let's walk through it. So the first thing I start with is Milnote. Milnote is my go-to organizational tool. I brainstorm all of my game ideas and jot down any mechanic I want to add to my game. I even keep references for art and sound and anything I want to remember later in my project in some sort of mood board on my main page. You can think of it as like a digital corkboard for anything that's game related. Now, don't fall down the rabbit hole that I fell down, and make sure you keep it organized. It's really easy to kind of throw everything in there and forget about it and not go back to it ever, so try and organize it to your liking. The reason I use Milnote, I mean, there's plenty of other softwares out there, but the reason that I like using Milnote so much is because of their organizational tools. It already has a bunch of organizational tools installed in it, and you don't need to know how to code or anything like that. It has a lot of tools already built in, so you have the freedom to be creative when you're trying to make one of these documents. Milnote is definitely one of the better programs out there in my opinion, but you can also try out Trello or even Notion if that's something you want to try. Jonas Tyroller actually talks about this in some of his YouTube videos, and I think they're great, so if you don't know who he is, go check him out for sure. But the reason you want to do this is so that you can filter your game and filter the ideas that you have putting into your game. So basically the reason you would want to do this is so you can use your game document as a filter. If you're later on in the project and you want to add things to your game, you need to look at your project idea and see if they're a good fit or a bad fit. And it kind of gives you just a base value of what to go off of when you're adding stuff to your project. He goes into it a lot more, so if you want to hear more about that, I would definitely recommend go checking him out. He is a genius when it comes to game development. Let's move into section number 2. I'm talking about Unity. Unity's huge, and you can use any game engine you want, but for me, I use Unity personally. I think it's a great tool. But let's talk about what you want to do inside of your game engine. This is where everything comes together. You're going to be testing out all of your coding mechanics and any sort of mechanic that you want to add to your game. I personally use C# because that's built into Unity, and it's honestly just an amazing and flexible tool. I spent some time learning it in college, and I think I just prefer using C#. Pretty much what I want to do is I spend the next few weeks working on a game prototype. I want to make sure that my game's actually fun before I start investing a bunch of time. Depending how much time I want to put into this, I try and get a few prototypes out and not just one, so I can see which ones are the best, and then from process of elimination, start forming a better idea of what's fun. A lot of people see this as a waste of time, but honestly I think it's huge, and I think it's very, very helpful when you're trying to make a game that you're going to spend a lot of time developing. You wouldn't want to make a game that you're going to spend 2 to 3 years developing and it not being fun. That's just going to make your development time brutal and not fun. And that brings me to the third section, my art assets. I use a lot of tools to make art. There's a lot of tools out there. It depends on the type of game that you want to make, but for me, I usually make 2D pixel games. So I have my 2 main art programs, which is Sprite and Photoshop. Sprite is honestly the perfect tool for pixel art. Essentially, when animating sprites, everything is built in. It's so user-friendly once you start to learn the program just a little bit, and everything's right there and it's super easy to use. When it comes to any of my UI elements or anything more marketable related, I use Photoshop. I'm a photographer at heart, so I'm very familiar with Photoshop, so I'm using it pretty much every day. So I do have that going for me, and I have the workarounds pretty much figured out by now. It's honestly just easier to make UI elements using that than it is using Sprite, but that's my personal opinion. So after I have my prototype down and I can start developing some art, this is where we're starting to get into like more betas and demos of my game. Honestly, it takes a lot of time, but just kind of like adjusting your Milnote document or any sort of document that you're using, adjusting that with your idea, writing down your mechanics. Just make sure that you're handling your scope and you're not letting it get too out of control. That's one of the most important things when it gets to this part of the game design journey. So if we fast forward a few months, hopefully we have a demo made. Demos are great. You're actually able to kind of send your game out, get some feedback, see how it feels, and see what you need to add still to the game. You should have your basic game loop down because that's kind of an essential part to making a demo. But it's good to finally get some feedback on this project that you've just been working on for the last few months. So So I try to aim to get my demo out as soon as possible so I can start getting feedback as soon as possible. Now once we have a demo and we think our game is fun, this is where we start getting into the marketing section of the game development course. Marketing is such a huge thing when it comes to game development, and honestly, a lot of game developers just ignore it. Now I'm sure there's a lot more that I can be personally doing to marketing my games more, but I think it's important that we talk about it. So when it comes to marketing, I'm usually using videos like this and also trailers for my game. There's a lot of things when it comes to marketing, but the one tool that I use that's very important for all of it is Premiere Pro. Premiere Pro is something that I edit all of my devlogs, all of my YouTube videos, and all of my trailers on it.
What the fuck was that? There's a bug in here. I gotta find it.
I got rid of the bug. Back to the video. But like I was saying, Premiere Pro is the best video editing tool out there for me. Now, obviously that is my bias because I've been using Premiere Pro for the last few years. There's a bunch of different options out there, and some are even cheaper or freer than the others. So if you have your own tool that you like to use, it doesn't matter if you're using Premiere Pro, DaVinci, Final Cut, just use what you're comfortable with. And that is my indie game workflow. Now there's a bunch of other tools out there and a bunch of other genres of video games out there that I'm not making yet, but I plan to do some videos on in the future. But for right now, these are the tools that I've been using for the last few years and that I'm very comfortable with. And this is just what works best for me. I hope I was able to give you guys some insight into my indie game workflow. I'd love to hear what your guys' workflow is in the comments below. If this video helped you out at all, I would love to hear about it. And don't forget to like and subscribe, it really helps me out. We're really trying to push the channel this year, guys. So thanks again for watching the video. If you got this far, I hope to see you guys in the next one. Peace.